Hello, I'm Clayton Burch, State Superintendent of Schools. Each and every week we come to you and we talk about the pandemic and what it's meant to our children and what it's meant to our families and our communities. We've talked about our teachers, we've talked about our service personnel, our administrators, and everyone in this state that has supported our young people. One caring adult is what we've been focusing on since March 13th when schools closed, and this week is no different. You've heard me talk to you week in and week out about the state of crisis West Virginia's been in for over a year, well before the pandemic. We've had discussions around our foster care system, homeless, poverty, the opioid crisis, child abuse and neglect, everything we've had to deal with as a school system to make sure our children have one caring adult looking out for them. And this week, I want to continue our conversations around communities and schools. First Lady Kathy Justice has made this a hallmark program of hers. She's helped us expand it throughout the state. We started with very few pilots a few years ago, and I believe now we are up over 20 counties in the state that are working to implement communities and schools. Today I have two special guests. First and foremost, we have a Communities and Schools Site Coordinator, Erin Boyd from Woodrow Wilson High School. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have our coordinator here at the Department of Education, Cynthia Sorsaia, who leads this effort from the Department of Ed statewide to support all counties implementing. So Erin, thank you so much for being with us and coming from Woodrow Wilson. Now we all know that President Miller Hall is going to be so proud that we had a Woodrow Wilson support staff here today, but you know, in all seriousness, Communities and Schools has meant a lot to Raleigh County. It's meant a lot to Woodrow Wilson High School. It means a lot to the First Lady, the State Board. Can you talk just a little bit about, you know, Communities and Schools and first and foremost, your role as a site coordinator?
Well, the program is to help students succeed in school and in life. So it's truly a wonderful job because it is so meaningful, and I get to help kids with anything from succeeding in their classwork to making sure that their electricity gets turned back on, making sure they have enough food. I've taken kids to eye appointments because they didn't have glasses and they couldn't see the whiteboards.
So on March 13th, when we closed the schools down due to the pandemic, what did that mean for Woodrow Wilson High School, and what did it mean for Communities and Schools to get ready to support those children?
Well, the school remained very active in trying to reach out academically. And then my job became probably more, I worked from home, and you know, I took kids grocery shopping, helped some of my student moms buy diapers, again, continued helping them with tutoring for their classes. But it was I was incredibly busy because there were a lot of needs.
And anecdotally, what we heard is that the folks that were implementing Communities and Schools felt like they had a little better handle on supporting those students. Did you feel that way in Raleigh County?
Absolutely, but we also maintained the relationships that we had throughout the summer. So it's nothing for me to get, you know, 6 or 7 texts in an evening from my students. Hey, you know, what about this? Or I'm having this issue, or what do you suggest for me in how to handle this problem? So it was like that all summer. United Way always does a great job of providing us with some of the things that the kids need. We have quite a few local donors, private. In fact, they prefer that their names not be mentioned, but very regularly throughout the week, I will shoot a text to somebody and say, hey, this is the need we have. A couple of weeks ago, a young girl had to go out and see her mother who was on life support, and it was out of state, and the girl just turned 18 and she was going to have to take her mom off life support, and she barely makes it and certainly didn't have the money to drive out to Ohio and stay in a hotel for a few days. And I reached out to a couple of people that are so generous, and it was like having a family wrap their arms around this young girl in a very hard time of life. And it was like that, you know, all summer, and it's like that now. People just are willing.
How has coming back to school, you know, you have some children in Raleigh County that are, especially at Woodrow Wilson High School, that are in person, some are remote and chose to go virtual. How does Communities and Schools support both?
The days that they're not there, their teachers are busy. So they can call me and I can work through schoolwork with them, help them out. The 100% virtual students have access to me in the same way. Sometimes I'll meet up with them in the afternoon, late afternoon, evenings, and do some tutoring or work. So one of the things we do to help identify needs is I have a QR code that we've put in the bathroom stalls because there's some privacy, and kids often don't want other people knowing that they're asking for help in an area. But the QR code takes them to a survey, and then the survey, on the survey they can identify, do they need clothing? And it's got very specific items of clothing and a place for them to enter what size they need. Do they need food? Do they need electricity at home? Do they have access to Wi-Fi? Is their technology broken? Do they need me to somehow find some new technology for them to get their remote schoolwork done? But I've had a lot of response from that, and it's enabled me to meet students that, to be honest, last year weren't even on my radar. Either they didn't have the same needs, or maybe they were just too shy to tell me.
So, what are the biggest needs you see in the future for communities and schools, especially even just at Woodrow Wilson? What are the future needs?
Immediate future needs. The kids need to know how to manage their time and have self-discipline. Schooling is so hard for most kids that I deal with because they've not learned discipline in their lives. Most of the students I deal with, not all, but most don't have two-parent involvement. They haven't had the time. Maybe their parents are barely making it, or maybe they're not even home when the kids are learning life skills. And so they don't have the self-discipline to succeed with remote learning. So that's the immediate need, is educating the kids on how to be self-disciplined so that they can be self-learners. And then our community just has lots of physical needs. Wi-Fi access. Many students don't have Wi-Fi access. Some it's economic reasons. Some they live in remote areas and there's no option for Wi-Fi in their area. But that makes remote learning extra difficult.
We are finding that the counties that had communities and schools in place seem to be a little better prepared. What would you tell a county looking to make a decision to become a communities and schools?
Oh, I think it is invaluable. I get to devote 100% of my day, every single day, to identifying needs that students have and figuring out ways to meet them. So, we have a food bank, we have a clothing closet. Like I said, people have come out of the woodwork just to say, I'm here to meet needs. If there's a need you know of and you don't have the finances to meet it, please let me know so that I can take care of it. And teachers, they don't always have the time to devote to that. They would love to. We've got teachers with huge hearts who meet needs all the time when they know of them. But I actually get to spend my time identifying needs, figuring out ways to meet the needs. It's a great job, and it is direly needed.
Well, as we continue our conversation, this is Cynthia Sorsaia, our coordinator again for communities and schools here at the department. And, Ms. Sorsaia, you've been a teacher for quite a number of years, experienced teacher. So when you look at your role as a teacher and now look at the role that communities and schools can play for our students, can you tell us a little bit about how they're similar and how they also work together?
I think about when I was a teacher in school, and I was in the classroom for several years and daily saw the needs that kids had, and worked really hard to remove a lot of the barriers that were in the way for students. Then I moved into a Title I position where I had more of an overview of the whole school, saw the needs again. Title I schools are schools that have high poverty, have a lot of things that are in the way for kids, and saw the issues that were getting in the way for kids. And I really started to look at, is it academics that are keeping our kids from making it, or is it something else that's getting in the way? And when I was able to have this opportunity to work with communities and schools, it was the answer for me that I saw that schools needed. Schools need someone in the school, like we put site coordinators in schools, so that teachers can be teachers, principals can be principals, everybody can do the job they're there for.
Talk a little bit about communities and schools statewide and what we're really looking for. What's the model that you want to see our communities and schools become?
So the good thing about this model is we have an advisory council. which has state partners that work together to take a look at the needs of our whole state. And I believe that that is the great equalizer, because when you look at a county that doesn't have a lot of partners, doesn't have a lot of resources, looking at the lens statewide, we're able to provide more resources. We're also connected to the national nonprofit Communities in Schools, and they also have national partners that we're able to partner with. So I always kind of say the resources that we're able to use and make our site coordinators aware of are deep and wide.
But you know, Ms. Sorsaia, the tough question's this. You know, in the middle of the pandemic, we're going to come out on the other side, and we're going to be faced with an achievement gap. Folks are going to talk about our academic needs. Folks are going to talk about, are we a generation behind? How are we going to play catch up? How does Communities in Schools actually support that need that we're going to have to really tackle the achievement gap?
I think as we look at what happened, we talked about, you know, on March 13th, how things changed. And I think as we have grown through this process and worked through it, we've hit a lot of difficulties. We all can say we've hit a lot of difficulties and we've tried to work through them. But I think we have all looked at it as difficulties sometimes open up opportunities that needed to be addressed anyway. It kind of pulled back that curtain that said, you know what, these have always been here. These inequities have always been here. How are we going to address them? And I think that Communities in Schools moving forward is based on those integrated student supports. What's needed? What's needed to get you ready to learn?